Surely you do something about that? No. This is absolutely remarkable. These were the opening moves of this epic titled Tuesday online chess game. Magnus Carlsen, the world #1, playing with the black pieces here and going for a Dutch defense. Usually a bit risque at the top level because you open up King E straight away. Now his opponent, Edis Gurel, just 16 years old from Turkey, phenomenally strong player, goes for this solid, steady setup here. And Magnus now sets out his stall with the Leningrad Dutch, preparing to fianchetto the bishop. We get more steady development, and now a quick king safety fist bump shared by the players, exploded out in honor of the king safety. We love to see it. A5's played, and it prepares to develop the knight, but the pawn taking the space first. This one explodes the center, pawn to c ships from Magnus, knight develops, and now look at this. Magnus puts his pony on the edge of the board. There's a common saying, a knight on the edge is an absolute loser with zero prospects. And that's about all we have to say about this one. It's struggling. The b4 square is taken away. Now the queens activate, and e5 from Magnus. And very often if you achieve this in the Dutch, you're doing okay. However, after captures, pawn captures, knight a4 is a great move that really highlights why white's in control here. Leading development, rooks connected, pressure on the black center already, knight's about to hop, c5 coming, and at the moment you have to deal with this pressure on the pawn. Best is actually knight e4 to open the defense. Instead, we get pawn e4. Now it's really understandable because you set up this connect 4. Magnus only goes and unlocks himself a spa day with Danny Wrench. No clothes allowed, robes and slippers only. What a lucky guy. But you do give up this massive d4 square. Super juicy. The knight pounces. Now the bishop develops, connects the rooks, and a great move. Pawn c5, very positionally thematic. You know, you're opening the bishop to now come on to the light squares. The knight could hop. You create an outpost for this guy. It's great chess. Magnus is struggling here. Now the best way to play is not how we saw in the game, but hop with the knight to b6. Then there's these slow motion ideas of bringing the bishop round. Really nice positional stuff that the computer shows. And if ever knight g4 threatening the mate, well then you can actually just chop it off with a good structure. But h3 played, a bit spooked. Magnus's best here is pushing the pawn, but he instead plays king h8. The knight hops forward here. f4 is still best, but he's possibly despairing at this point and setting up the pieces for the next game. That's an absolute disaster, but keep your eye on that horsey. Boy, does it come to life. Rook ad1's now played, and f4 from Magnus, going for the counterplay. Bishop c4 is a strong move here, but not played. We see takes, the queen streams in, nice cutback here, hitting the queen. It centralizes, and a big mistake now. The pawn's attacked, is still defended by the queen, but best here is to just set up the pawn structure. But instead, this guy hops backwards and it's just a straight blunder. Pawn is dropped. Magnus gobbles it up like a lovely plate of
mushrooms.
And even though he's lost a pawn, white's still actually a little bit better. You know, if you look at the eval baron over here, you can see it showing that. Shows how strong the white position is. Bishop f4 played, converging on the d6 square with the knight, and there's a threat to go here, win an exchange. Surely you do something about that? No. This is absolutely remarkable. It's where Magnus comes into his own. He just understands chess so deeply. He plays the great move of knight d5, hitting the bishop, saying, please come into my house, do your worst, hit my queen. He sticks it all the way back here. That one's now in the frozen wastelands of Siberia, chilling harder than Chill Liren. Absolutely set in stone over there. And now the rook drops off the board. White's an exchange ahead. Now the knight's about to drop, so it's protected here by it is. Now we see knight f4, and you just start to sense the counterplay. You know, this guy's a bit of a monster around the king. The pawn is annoying. There's pressure on the dark squares and no dark squared bishop for white. So knight c2 was played. It's a nice regrouping. Queen c5 is a good move, and now a mistake. Low on time-ish, although Magnus is actually down here. Best is to just cemento everything with knight 2 to e3, but not played. We saw bishop g4. Now it does have a positional idea, which is get rid of Magnus's bishops, but here, and as ever, chess is so concrete, it's not the best, because now there's a monster square on d3 that the knight can jump to, and first, there's this annoying move. The pawn pushes and you can't take or push, or you drop a whole piece. Therefore, this one now spins to defend its brother, but the pawn drops. It's big counterplay, supported by this awesome bishop from afar. Think King's Indian, think Leningrad Dutch, think Grunfeld. I mean, when this guy comes to life, wow, it's a sight to behold. The knight jumps forward, goes for the pawn. Magnus defends it, will ignore every single computer question mark, right? Ruining the game. Now we see knight takes on b7, and it loses time, but it has a point. You've got a passed runner now on the a file. Magnus pushes here, going for the distraction. The knight re-enters the game, and now this is a great example of the engine. It's screaming for knight d7 to develop a piece, but Magnus plays the very natural knight d3. A real octopus that Stoctopus can be proud of. Kasparov loves it. And now a nice little tactical shot from it is, he plays knight takes on e4. Idea being, if you take, wait, whose move is it? Black, sorry. If you take here, white takes here. You remove the defender and you won a pawn. Lovely jubbly. But Magnus has seen that little bit further in the time scramble, and he plays the first of two brilliancies here. Gets the double question mark. Can you guess the move he played? So the move he plays is b1 equals queen. Great distraction of the rook, because now he can take the knight and this one's still defended. Now the best way for white to play here is so difficult. One of the top engine lines is pawn f3, but it looks positionally suicidal to weaken all those dark squares when there's a dark squared bishop. Or rook fd1 is another top move, just sacking a pawn and then spinning back, because remember the rook's on this pawn too. Anyway, in the trouble, we see rook b7, so natural, but look at the drop of the evaluation, which is why I mention it. Now this guy finally joins the game, and this is why Magnus practices. This is why he goes hard in the Oslo training camps. It's for these moments. The pony's really hopping now with a vengeance. It's beautiful. We see rook a7 hitting the knight. It jumps to c5, and now it is just struggling. Scrambling on time here, he completely forgets which way knights are supposed to move, drops a pawn which Magnus gobbles up. Now the knight just drops back, the queen re-centralizes, queen a5 goes for a desperate rook exchange, but he's just getting crushed now, and Magnus puts the icing on the cake with an awesome second brilliancy here. It's good night Vienna with knight takes on f2. The big bad wolf blowing down this poor piggy's house. If you take, this is the point. You just remove the defender. There's all this pressure here still. We won't go down that route, because instead we see rook a8 going for the exchange and the counterplay. The knight drops though. This is how the game proceeded. White takes here, but there's a problem. This is of course a pin, and this guy, who was so miserable all game, went right back, then re-entered. Now he's spinning round. Here we go. He's putting the finishing touches on this great game. We get a check, the bishop blocks, and here we see a loss on time, but there's just nothing to be done. Queen d2 is best to defend the king and the rook, but then you can do this, pile on the pressure, liquidate, and your two minor pieces up, of course. So that was how the game finished, and Magnus went on to win the whole event. This was the early titled Tuesday, 6th of May. Incredible performance from him once more. Hope you enjoyed this one, and for another insane titled Tuesday game by the man himself, have a look at this video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon. Cheers.